Welcome back to QAV, Tony. This is episode 807. We're recording on the 18th of February. Happy Valentine's Day for last week, Tony.
Oh, thank you, Cam. Benny's not a
Where are
fan of
you?
Valentine's Day, so we didn't celebrate. Did you?
No, we have never celebrated Valentine's Day. I mean, Chrissy's birthday's only sort of 6 days before it anyway, but
Oh.
we just decided right at the beginning that Valentine's Day is bullfrogs. So we just never do it. Oh, sorry, I can't swear. Somebody asked me to cut out the swearing on the podcast, so apologies. Well, I said it's all Tony's fault, but I can cut mine out too. I'll edit that out.
Yeah. Tell them not to listen to your other podcasts.
Oh yeah, yeah. They said there are kids in the car. I'm like, well, kids need to toughen up. No, I didn't say that.
They're playing QAV to their kids. That's great.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And where are you today, Tony? Tell the listeners where you are today.
I'm
The
in
watchers.
Wagga Wagga, in Ruddy's office in Wagga Wagga. Up here to play a bit
Right.
of golf, catch up with Ruddy. Haven't seen him for a while.
Just
Yeah,
for something different. You got to play some golf.
yeah, yeah. Something different. But
Well, the art.
it's been a pretty full-on time moving down to Cape Shank, so it's good to have a break.
That's good.
Yeah,
You sent me a video of a hedgehog, anteater. No, what do we
echidna,
call them? Echidna.
echidna.
That's right, echidna on the golf
Yeah,
course. It was
yeah,
huge too. Looked big.
yeah, yeah,
Wow. Eating
yeah.
well at Cape Shank, the echidnas apparently.
Yes, yeah, that was lovely. I've really enjoyed going out at about 6 o'clock at night and playing golf before it gets dark. And often I can encounter lots of kangaroos, occasional echidna, the occasional fox. So yeah, you said you liked echidna, so I sent you a video.
Yeah, I'm jealous. RBA due to meet today. Tony, what's your call on what they're going to do? Seeing as we
Well,
know they're terrified of you, they avoid you in public places when they run into you.
well, the last RBA governor did, and
Mm.
I read in the paper today that the current one dresses in old clothes and puts a cap on when they go out in public, so they're not hassled. So
Wow.
it must have been part of the handover from the last guy to the new lady. Yeah,
The disguise, the RBA
yeah,
governor disguise. They've got like a wardrobe in the chairperson's
fake
office, the governor's
fake
office.
mustache.
Yeah, fake
Yeah,
mustaches. Yeah, yeah. Fake noses. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, look, we'll know in about 5 minutes, I think, what the result is. But I think they're going to cut. And the bond market thinks they're going to cut, although there's been a lot of people saying it's 50-50, which I would subscribe to based on the numbers because inflation's now back in the desired range, but unemployment is still quite low. So they generally don't cut unless inflation is above the range and unemployment is struggling. Uh, so I think on the numbers they would normally wait, but if they wait, they're going to be caught up in the election, the federal election, which is has to be held before sometime in May. And I very clearly remember back when John Howard lost the 2007 election, there was a rate rise during that election campaign, and the RBA was roundly criticised for doing something which was seen to favour one side over the other, to be a criticism of the economic management of the coalition. So they haven't ever done a movement one way or the other during an election since then. The problem they're having now is that the federal election hasn't been called. It's likely that if inflation keeps following its trend, it's going to be at the bottom of the range or even below it in the coming months. And then their kind of hands are tied. They can't cut during the election cycle. So I think their logic's going to be if we think we need to cut in the next, say, 3 months, then we should cut now to avoid any political destabilization. Because if they wait for 3 months and then cut, then they'll be accused of not doing anything, which is a kind of political act in itself. Um, yeah, so I don't think they want to dance to that tune. I think they'll cut today, even though it probably isn't. greatly needed, at least it takes him out of the election cycle and any sort of accusation of bias.
And why do I care? How does it affect me either way if they cut or they don't cut?
Oh, you're one of the lucky or unlucky Australians who doesn't have a mortgage, so it doesn't affect you at all. Well, it does indirectly. I mean, your credit card bill will go down, or it should.
Don't have a credit card bill.
Oh, there you go. And interest rates should start to reduce costs in all sorts of ways. The
I meant
businesses you deal
purely,
with should be able to cut their prices. The utilities you deal with should be able to cut their prices if it flows through quickly. But it's
I
probably
meant
only going
from
to be
it.
like a 25 basis point cut, so it's almost symbolic, really. It won't have a big effect on the economy one way or the other, I don't think.
Right. I meant specifically from a QAV investing perspective. Does it make any difference? Does the market's been going down today, I see, and yesterday it was down as well. So, do you think the market will go up if the interest rates are cut, or is they already
Well,
factored it in?
yeah, well, like I said, I think the bond market's 85% sure it's going to be a cut, so the market probably has factored it in. I would have thought over time the market would go up. It may not. It might jump a little bit straight away. Might reverse the losses from today. I think the losses in the last couple of days have been on the back of some of the bank reports, which are a large part of the index, and they've been suggesting their margins have been eroded over the last 6 months.
They just announced, Tony, 3 minutes ago, as we were talking, they've cut it to 4.1% as expected.
There you go.
Hmm.
Yeah. And what's the market done? Well, we don't know. We get a 20 minutes delay on the market,
We've
I
got a
guess.
lag. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, there you go. That's, mark this in the calendar as prediction one right for me in the last 5 years.
Let's see what the Fin says. Why it matters. The central bank raised borrowing costs 13 times since 2022, but has since held the cash rate at 4.35% for over a year as it waited for inflation to tick back towards its 2% to 3% target. There was a lot of money riding on the decision, with the market pricing in a 91% chance of a rate cut. What's next? RBA Governor Michelle Bullock will hold a media conference at 3:30 p.m. out of her usual disguise, which is expected to provide more insights into the board's decision making.
Turn up like dressed as the Ronald McDonald, the hamburger or something like that. Well, I think the follow-on is expecting the federal election to be called now for the middle of April, will be my next
Right,
prediction.
right.
That'll happen in the next day or two, I would think, because the government will be crying about how they've got cost of living under control.
And you think you want to make a prediction for that? Is Peter Trumpton going to be our next Prime Minister?
Peter Trump. It's a hard one
My,
too.
lo-
I think
my
it'll be
local member, Mr. Potato Head, his office
oh,
is
is he
just
really a local
around
member?
the corner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I saw some numbers recently. They've got to win an awful lot of seats to get back to a majority. I think the coalition is down to somewhere in the 50s, and they need 75 seats or 76 to hold power, which the Labor
Wow.
Party only has one or two seats up its sleeve. So needs to be a big swing for Dutton to rule by himself. So I'm predicting a minority government. And I would think most of the independents would probably, or the majority of them would side with Labor rather than the Liberals. So my tip is a minority government under Labor.
And at what point does Elon Musk get involved and start trying to Murdoch his way into the country?
Murdoch his way. Well, I think he'll start getting involved straight away on X and I guess the Russians will a little bit too. There'll be all sorts of you know conspiracy theories doing the rounds and
Do you
um,
think the Russians care? I don't think the Russians
disinformation.
care. What's
No,
what's
probably not.
Australia got to do with Russia? I don't think so.
Yeah, there was. I think the more interesting thing was the passing of legislation last week to limit donations to minority parties. So Liberal Coalition and Labor ganged up to make it harder for the Teals to get re-elected or to get funded to get re-elected um, in the last week or so. So, but like, I'm not sure if that comes in this election cycle or the following one. Ostensibly, it was to stop Clive Palmer from spending hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars to win a seat. But really, it was aimed at the Teals to stop Climate 200 from funding them.
Right.
Mm.
Wow. All right.
Yeah,
What
so
else have you
as
got
we
on
know
your?
from our psychopath book, institutions always protect themselves, don't they?
Yes. And, as I quoted in the book and I've been reminded of recently, the iron law of oligarchy that the
Yep, iron
German
law.
philosopher
That's
wrote about in the 20s,
a
Michaels
great
or
saying, the
Nietzsche
iron
was.
law
Yeah.
of oligarchy.
All organizations eventually move towards oligarchy.
Hmm.
And it's sort of playing out in the US as we speak. I think it's gone beyond an oligarchy there now to just a kleptocracy. But yeah.
Yeah. How's your thinking about how long Musk will last at Mar-a-Lago?
Ah, well, when the election happened, I didn't think he would last till the inauguration.
Mm.
But he had his son in the Oval Office telling Trump to shut up last week, and that was
Mm.
okay. So I think we've well and truly established where the power lies in that partnership
Yeah.
right now.
I was listening to the PEP podcast on the way up, but it's I think it started life as a spin-off of Planet America, the show on the ABC, but now it has to put a disclaimer at the start of each episode saying it's not associated with the Planet America or the ABC, even though Chaz Ticcadello does it from that show, and it's about American politics. Because I think he got into trouble for selling merch on the ABC website, which is not allowed to happen. Anyway, um, he's firmly in the camp that Trump can't afford to get rid of Musk now because Musk has twice as many Twitter followers as Trump does, and yeah, can't afford to have those people attacking him if he gets rid of Musk.
And he just has Twitter, so he can he
Yeah,
can aim Twitter at whatever he wants. And
yeah.
yeah.
The other great thing I picked up in that podcast was that some bill passed through Congress about Greenland being bought or given to the US, being acquired by the US, and then one of Trump's lackeys tacked on a rider saying that after Greenland is acquired by the US, the name is going to be changed to Red, White, and Blue Land. I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. Anyway, what else have you got on your list of talking points? It's not US politics, Tony.
Just before I came on the air, I saw Challenger has released its result, and CGF is on the buy list, and unfortunately, they weren't received well, and it's now a sell. So, if anyone's using an old buy list, just be aware of to check Challenger before you buy it. What else did I have? I had Findy, an article about Findy. So Findy shares are up 10% after their results. So they kind of had the reverse reaction to Challenger. Uh, they they came in on guidance. They did talk about some delay in rolling out ATMs in India because this is an Indian ATM company. But they reported they had secured 2,300 roughly ATMs from with the State Bank of India, and they've actually called out what they think their earnings will be over the next 10 years, which I thought was a brave call for any sort of company to make. But they're saying they're going to earn between 125 million and 135 million over 10 years. And they've announced that they've appointed Rothschild, the bank, to look at an IPO in India in 2026. So some good news in that result.
Hmm.
And that's pretty
Well,
much all I had except for pulled pork.
their share price is back to where it was in October last year, around about
Yeah.
$5.36. As many of our members know, because we hold it, they got up to nearly $8 by the end of November last year, and then came crashing down to $3.50 going back beginning of January. They've been creeping their way back up, so it's been a bit of a turbulent ride for Findy for reasons that have never exactly been clear to me.
No, me
All
neither,
right.
but they are up after the results, which is always good to see.
Well, before you get into the pulled pork, a couple of things. There were some other announcements that came out in the last week. AMP announced their FY24 results. They're down 15%. A massive drop in net profit, fell by 43% to 150 million. Some other things, shrinking margins in AMP Bank net interest margins dropped from 1.42% to 1.26%. Underlying NPAT fell 22.6% for AMP Bank. Weak dividend growth. Final dividend was just 1 cent per share, 20% franked, bringing the full year dividend to 3 cents per share. So, yeah, not a great result from the company your wife used to help run.
Hmm. I'm not so sure about that, Cam. Was that an AI summary of the results?
It was.
Yes, I
I
thought so.
gave the annual report to ChatGPT.
So this is the Stock Doctor summary I'm going to read out for the same results.
Okay.
Um, Total revenue down 1.1%, with increase in platforms offset by lower net interest income in the bank, reflecting previously flagged margin compression and constrained growth. Underlying NPAT up 15.1% to 236 million, compared to FY 2023 205 million. Variable costs reduced 7.5% to 294 million. Blah, blah, blah. And lower loan impairment expenses in the bank. Underlying EPS up 25%, reflecting improved earnings and the positive impact of a share buyback. So they bought back all the shares. So that's a very different flavour, I think, to what you read out. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if the AMP share price recovers a fair bit. I think it's an overreaction in the results. From the sort of research I've done, I think what the analysts are focused on is the dividend cut. See, what happened at AMP is they sold business units in the last 12 months. So they sold their advice business, parts of AMP Capital, and a business called Super Concepts, which does superannuation auditing. And they were all flagged. So that's why the headline numbers are down, which is why it's better off looking at like-for-like profit or underlying profit this year versus last year, which is up, to look at how the business is going forward. But I think what's caused the big sell-off in the share price was the cut in dividends, and not so much the cut in dividends as AMP came out and said the reason they're cutting dividends is they wanted to keep more surplus profit on the balance sheet, rather than give it back in dividends or buybacks going forward. And that's what's spooked the analysts, saying, what's changed? Why are you doing that? And AMP's got a good answer for it. They've sold off business units which were contributing to that surplus, so they're just being fiscally conservative. So my gut feel is that the sale was overdone. The people saw the headline numbers, forgot about the fact that they flagged business divestments. And I wouldn't mind betting AMP starts to crawl higher from here.
What do you mean they forgot? These are professionals who do this for a living. They're analysts who analyze AMP. How do they forget?
Oh, so's AI. Got it wrong
Well,
too.
what are you criticizing about the AI summary? Which part of it do you think it got wrong? It said weak dividend
Uh,
growth.
Massive drop in net profit. Yes, that's right, but the massive drop was because they sold business units. So you're not comparing apples with apples, and that's the headline. So
Well, I'm just.
it's misleading.
Oh, okay. You wanted more context,
Yeah. Well,
right?
like I said, yeah, net profit is down a lot. All those metrics are down because they sold business units in the last 12 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the summary was correct. I just didn't give you enough context on the summary.
Well, I guess so. The summary was correct, but not very useful. It was misleading.
Well, either way, the share price is way down, and we hold it in a couple of our portfolios. So I wanted to ask you, from a bad news perspective, this doesn't really rank, even though the share price dropped 15%. We still just continue to hold on and sell
Yeah,
if
I
it
don't think it's
breaches the
bad
sell
news
trigger?
myself. I don't think it's bad news
Oh,
at
right.
all. Yeah, I
Right.
think underlying profit. Well, we don't look at the metrics underlying. So the ones that are going forward after divestiture of those businesses, net profit up 15%. Um, revenue was down 1.1, but that's so flat. Earnings per share up 25%. So I think it's not. I think it's good news rather than bad news. And if AMP board are being conservative about their dividend strategy, is that a bad thing as well?
I
I
guess
don't think so.
not.
I don't think
Right.
it's a red flag at all.
Okay. Well, it is close to its 3 point trend line sell for us, which is
Yeah,
$1.39. It's
right.
currently $1.41. So, yeah, we
Okay.
may have
Well,
to
the
sell it
trend line was
anyway.
sorted out for us, but I don't think it's a
Yeah.
red flag myself.
Well, I'm a little bit nervous about the next one because I also used AI to summarize this annual report. We'll see how you feel about this one. CVL. CVL's half year report came out. It dropped initially 12%, then down to 15%. I'm not even going to read you my analysis on that one because you probably should. So
No,
tell me,
I'm not going
tell
to
me
shit on it.
about.
I don't know much about CVL. So with AMP, it's widely covered. So I was able to do a bit more reading on it. But CivMec, no one covers, so I couldn't you know see what the thinking was around its report. And so I think you've got to take it at face value, which you have. Um, again, I mean, if I read through their results and it was again they were highlighting they've got lots of work coming up and their pipeline's full with orders and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes with these kind of contractors, it can be a timing issue. But I don't know CivMec well enough to know what the reasons were to drive the profit downgrade that they had. So yeah, take it on face value. But again, I'm not going to red flag them either based on these numbers.
Yeah. Well, for the record, according to ChatGPT's summary of their annual report, revenue increased slightly, but profit after tax dropped by 16.9%. Lower earnings per share, EPS fell from 6.29 cents to 5.21% cents, a 17.2% decline. So there you have it. And we hold CVL2. Let me see where they are at. And so, well, we hold it in two portfolios. In the dummy portfolio, we've held it since March of 2021 when we bought it for 60 cents. It's currently trading at $1. So it's up 67% in that portfolio. But I also added it to a light portfolio in May of 24 at 97%, 97 cents. So it's up 3%, 3 cents since then. But its 3 point trend line is 70 cents. So it's got quite a
Yeah.
ways to go.
Yep.
And PPM was down to 5% the other day. Let's see where that is now. It's close to its 3 point trend line sell too. It's currently trading at $1.44. The 3 point trend line is sell price is $1.40. We hold that in a few portfolios, but only bought it late last year and early this year, so it hasn't had much of a chance. And I couldn't see any news about PPM, why
Yeah. So what
it's down.
I think the reason why it might be down is because I read through the results quickly, and it's a very complicated presentation with lots of detail. But if if I had to focus on one thing, I would look at the arrears greater than 90 days graph, um, which is an important thing for a finance company. How much money do you have to provide for people who are slow at paying or can't pay? And that's a big impact on the margin for a finance company. And the arrears greater than 90 days is at its second highest, well, it's highest since COVID, and the trend line is up. So I think that's what if I had to ascribe a reason for the sell-off, I'd say it'd be that.
Where did
Um,
you get these results from?
Stock Doctor.
They haven't. There are no results in Stock Doctor that I can see.
Let me have a look.
They've got an invitation to their full year results briefing, which is on the 27th of February. So it's still over a week away.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm using the old ones, am I?
I think so, unless you're
Yeah, I
seeing
think I
something
am.
I'm not seeing.
No, no, I am. I'm using the ones from last year. You're right.
And
I'm
you've
out
done a
of
pulled
date.
pork on them since then, I think.
Yeah, okay. I am sorry. I'm looking at the old results
Oh, that's a
with the
relief.
90 days arrears increasing.
Yeah, right. So that was from August.
Yeah, sorry.
Their half, for some reason, their half yearly results are in August, come out in August,
Right.
and their full year comes out in February. Well, I think somebody's. I thought you must have been on the know because I think somebody's seen their results
Mm.
and are not telling us about them.
Yeah, there's certainly no announcements then since that last the half year results in August of last year or the full year results for last year.
But
Yeah.
somebody knows something.
Mm.
Share price is down even further the last couple of days. It's been
Oh,
falling
really?
consistently for the last 4 or 5 days. So,
It's getting close to a sell too, isn't it?
yeah, it's very close to a sell, a few cents off. So, somebody knows something, but they're not telling us, or somebody thinks they know something.
Yeah.
Last news item I've
And
got.
sorry, just on that too, is that they could be caught up in what's driving decreases across the banks at the moment too. So Bendigo Bank came out. There was another one as well. It was in the AMP bank results as part of the AMP announcement. And Westpac came out yesterday, all saying that there's a compression of mortgage rate margins due to competition in the sector. So that could also be leading to pepper money
Right.
going down.
Yeah, okay. So it could be that.
Mm,
Like the fact that people were expecting interest rates to be cut, that play into the banks?
possibly. But people have been seeing that for a while now, and the bank shares have just gone down in the last day or so since results have started coming through for the banking sector. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's more Westpac's reporting yesterday and Bendigo Bank's reporting yesterday as well, I think.
Right. So general anti-bank sentiment right now, PPM might be caught up in.
Well, there's always been an anti-bank sentiment out there in the in the community, but I think it's Westpac's results and Bendigo's results are spooking the sector.
Well, speaking of sentiment, the only other story I had, well, I got two. I saw in the Financial Review today. Investors pile into China as DeepSeek unleashes AI bulls. China's equity markets have jumped about US 1.3 trillion in value over the past month as hedge funds have piled in at the fastest clip in months, fueled by the promise of DeepSeek. This has pushed the MSCI China into a bull market, rising more than 20% from its cyclical low and rocketed Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index to be among the world's hottest share markets this year. So, lots of doom and gloom stories about China and their economy that we've touched on over the last year.
Yeah,
Now, it's
turns
bull
out they were
market.
wrong. uh, Journalists love volatility as much as an investor. I love volatility on the stock market.
I saw a photo in Reddit today, one of the AI subreddits that I follow, of the CEO of DeepSeek, Liang Wenfeng, meeting Xi Jinping for the first time. I think Jack Ma was there. There was a meeting of tech founders, the leading tech companies, meeting with President Xi this week. Sort of interesting to see Jack Ma and Xi all friendly and shaking hands after how they rug pulled him a few years ago. But yeah,
Interesting to see Jack Ma still alive after that period.
Xi Jinping doesn't have people killed if he doesn't like them. Tony,
Is that
he
right?
doesn't. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't want Jack Ma. He doesn't want Jack Ma dead. He just wants him to know who's boss,
Right.
which is one of the
Okay.
things that I love about China's economy. Like capitalists are allowed to do certain things, but you get to a certain point and you remember, who's running the country. It's not Elon Musk running China. You don't get to run
Yes.
China if you're Elon Musk.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I don't think so. BYD rug pulled Tesla over there too. So, you know. Anywho, um, yeah, the whole AI, yeah, it's hilarious to me because following the AI space, pre DeepSeek, the general consensus in all of the AI subreddits that I was following in the general AI media was China's got no chance of catching up.
No, really.
TSMC and Nvidia have got a lock on the whole market. The US has got a lock on the market. The sanctions that they've applied towards China with the higher end chipsets means that China can't catch up, won't catch up. It's all over. And my position has always been, I wouldn't count China out just yet. Like, China's very, very resourceful when they decide they're going to do something. They decide they want to build 20 new hospitals, they'll build them in a week. Like, in China wants to get stuff done, they get stuff done. And here we are. Oh, all of a sudden, China's the hot place for AI. Now everyone's like, "Woo, China's a player again." Whether or not it lasts, whether or not it's just a bit of a hype cycle remains to be seen. But fascinating to me how the stories just flick
Yeah.
between no hope for China. Oh my God, China's killing it. Take your pick. Yeah.
A couple of things on that. So, I mean, the DeepSeek is really a classic case of China reverse engineering ChatGPT and other AI. And it's just staggering to me that anyone would think they wouldn't do that.
Well, they didn't even reverse engineer ChatGPT. They just used ChatGPT to train their own.
Yeah, right. Okay.
They just
Yeah.
piggybacked on it.
And I also saw an article in the last couple of days on the Wall Street Journal about someone who works for Jensen Huang, who made a name for himself within NVIDIA by selling chips to the Chinese to get around the sanctions. Um, and yeah, so capitalism was thwarting regulation and it was helping
Who would have
China.
thought? Who would have
Yeah,
thought?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
The
no,
other,
I
the
mean,
other
China's
story
going to
that
just keep
was,
doing it
yeah,
like it's done in the last 20 or 30 years. See something, make something, do it cheaper. Start again.
I would expect so. The other story that I know you would have probably read and enjoyed is the Murdochs go to war through the media.
Yeah, I did. Oh, I love it.
Oh God. For people who haven't seen it but are interested, James Murdoch has lobbed a bomb at his father and brother and is preparing to do worse. That's the message Antipodean watchers of the Murdoch family are taking from the weekend's unprecedented revelations into the inner workings of the Australian born but now global media industry. Prompting the intrigue are two stunning features on the family, delivered within hours of each other and each centered on Rupert Murdoch's audacious and so far unsuccessful attempt to write his relatively liberal minded children, Elizabeth, James, and Prudence MacLeod, out of their eventual majority control of the family trust to the advantage of favoured son and would-be successor Lachlan. One story is a blow-by-blow of 3,000 pages of legal transcripts leaked to the New York Times, a fascinating, if relatively neutral account of previously secret affairs. The other, a largely sympathetic profile of troublesome beneficiary James Murdoch, that's in inverted commas, in The Atlantic, is more pointed and personal. Just like the irony that the Murdochs, who have used their media to trash, destroy, leak,
Hmm.
hacking, people's mobile phones in the UK and then using that to destroy reputations of celebrities and politicians and royal family members, etc., etc., and then, you know, weasel out of it in court, um, to be having to eat their own dog food, as we used to say in Microsoft, is just delicious. I mean, the Schadenfreude is just too delicious to ignore, really.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, it's also becoming a botched business move by Murdoch Senior too, isn't it? Really, I mean, to me, the obvious thing to do is to hive off Fox News, keep Lachlan in charge of it, and make cut a deal with the other three kids to take some money or some parts of News Corp and bugger off, and let Lachlan and Rupert keep running Fox News. Because Rupert's right. If you kind of stop Fox News from being what it is now, it's going to go the way of MSNBC and CNN, which are declining rapidly in market share and in viewership. Um, so he's right. If you want to keep making money as a company, you've got to keep Fox News alive. And Lachlan's drunk that Kool-Aid, and so has Rupert. The other three kids are saying, no, it's a cancer on society, we want out. Just cut a deal. Stop taking people to court and, you know, playing playing Godfather and trying to, cut people out of things. Just cut a deal.
I imagine that's probably where it started, though. I haven't read all the transcripts of the whole kit and caboodle. I'll wait till the book comes out. But I imagine they probably did try and cut a deal first,
Maybe,
and
but
then
the way I read it, from my memory, I think it was the falling out when James and Lachlan were both running News Corp, and James kept getting undertakings that Fox News wasn't going to be as right wing or outrageous, and of course that was lip service, and he got upset and split, and now he's using the media to try and push his case. But yeah, whether there was a deal on the table or not, it's how it's going to end up, I would have thought.
well, the Financial Review says the solution: a buyout of the troubling siblings on more agreeable terms than the 60% of market value they had been offered. Call it a
Oh, there you go.
veiled
Okay, sorry.
threat.
Yep.
As Prue James and Liz told The Times, we are refraining from comment at this moment because most of the litigation is still under seal. Keywords: at this moment. Yeah, so I think there was an offer. They didn't like the
Okay.
offer. Rupert and Lachlan tried to go the nuclear route and change the trust, and that failed. So, yeah. But
Well, because
yeah,
don't
it's
they get a
fascinating.
quarter each?
Yeah, I
I
think that
think in the
was,
will. I think
yeah.
there's some money put aside for Wendy Ding's kids, but
Mm,
I mean, 60% isn't, it was an underbid, so they've got to try and leverage it
mm,
up to 70, 75% before they'll accept, I guess.
mm. To me, it's just fighting over chairs on the Titanic, though. Like the whole US economy, AI in the next couple of years is going to eviscerate the news business. And I don't think any of them are going to be worth anything in a few years, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, News Corp now, a lot of its money is coming from Real Estate Australia, the REA company, um, which is listed on the ASX, and News Corp owns a big share in. So I don't know if that's going to be disrupted by AI. They'll probably use AI to help productivity when it comes to selling houses. Um, Fox News, there'll always be some version of Fox News around, whether it's run by News Corp or AI or X or Elon or whatever. So
Well, X will be the new Fox News. I think that's rapidly becoming true, right?
yeah,
And he's launching Grok 3 supposedly today, which he reckons is the smartest AI on the planet, and
of
is
course
going
he
to
does.
be extremely right wing biased, we all imagine. Um, no, I
Oh
think
dear.
AI will disrupt real estate brokerage sites. I think it's going to disrupt all retail marketing because I won't go to a website to look for something. I think it's going to disrupt Amazon and all of those sorts of places too. as soon as AI is fully integrated into my devices and is reading my emails, my text messages, my search history, I'm talking to it all day, every day about what's going on in my life. It's listening to my phone calls. It's looking at my calendar. It's reading my notes. It knows everything about me, right? It's my assistant. It's my Alfred. It's my Jarvis from Iron Man, right? And I will say to it, hey, or it'll say to me, hey, I know you want to buy a new house. Do you want me to find something for you? And I go, yeah, that'd be great. And it'll go out and do the research. This is OpenAI is already touching on this with their
Yeah, but
deep
that's what
learning, right?
it doesn't mean realestate.com.au goes away. It's still going to have to be a
It,
repository that Java searches.
right, but it doesn't have. There's no value in a single repository. The value of a single repository like that right now is it has a brand. People know the brand because they've spent billions of dollars marketing it, whether it's Seek or realestate.com or whatever it is. So people go to that to find the stuff that they want to buy. I won't go to stuff to find what to buy. I'll just ask my AI, go find me something. It can look at 1,000 websites, 10,000, 100,000 websites that have something to sell, can evaluate all of the offers and get down into the details of, the quality and the price and all that kind of stuff and come back to me with recommendations. It doesn't need to go to a one website that's a portal. That's all these sites are. They're fancy portals
Hmm.
from the 90s, right?
Yeah.
It's a basic portal business model. The value proposition of a portal business model is there can only be two or three that people remember, and you go to one and you know the one, and that's the one that you go to. And if they establish that kind of brand awareness, it's just easy for humans to find. You Google real estate, you see, oh, I've heard of those guys, and you go to it. AIs don't have to worry about brand awareness. They search the entire web in a second and know everything about everything and can evaluate the minutiae. So all of those, the value proposition, I think, of all of those brands, it gets gutted in the next few years. When AI is fully trustworthy, that's the first thing that we have to
Yeah,
get
that's a
to.
big roadblock too, I think.
No, easy. That's done. That's all. They've already
No,
figured.
I think it's
Seriously,
harder.
they've already figured that
No,
out.
I'm being serious too. I mean,
Oh,
Jarvis is a glorified Alexa, and I wouldn't touch Alexa with dirty
okay.
rags.
Yeah. There will
Same with
be,
Siri.
yeah, there will be, there'll be a bell curve of skepticism, but I guarantee it, the vast majority of people will
Ooh,
trust AIs
I
within,
guarantee. You heard it
yeah, yeah, yeah,
first.
within the next 12 months, I'd say,
Oh,
at the latest 24 months.
wow. I think
It's
there's a number
already,
of roadblocks to stop the trustworthy factor, not the least of which being the hallucinations that the AI gets it wrong.
yeah, but they're fixing that. They've already said, all the engineers are like, yeah, we know how to fix it. They've coded it in. They figured it out. It's just got to
So,
implement it now.
so if I outsource my stock investments to Jarvis and he said, "Oh, AMP's red flag," he'd be wrong.
Yeah, I
I'm
didn't
not
say they
saying
fixed it
humans
now.
are always right,
I'm
but I think
saying,
there's a huge gap to cross. And look, you're probably right in the long term, whether it's 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, I'm not sure. But the value proposition's got to be really strong. And at the moment,
yeah,
I'm not seeing it. Yeah.
yeah, but trust me, it's done. It's just a matter of implementation now, scaling up data
We've
centers.
had a guarantee and a trust me.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or don't, but we'll see. Um, so anyway, I deck chairs on the Titanic. That's my take on all of this.
so in which case Lachlan's going down, Rupert's going down if he lives, and the three kids, if they can leverage a deal now, will walk away the winners.
Maybe depends on how you define winner. Um,
Or they'll walk away with a stack of assets or money
yeah,
that's not going to be caught up with AI devaluation.
yeah. Well, it depends on what they invest that money in, though.
Yeah, true.
Bitcoin, Tony. It's all Bitcoin. That's the future. It's all Bitcoin.
But
Hey,
not
do you want to?
Dogecoin. not Trump coin.
Yeah, Dogecoin. Yeah.
Melania.
I
Yeah.
haven't looked at Trump coin this week. I wonder what's going on there.
Mm.
Hey, do you want to do your pulled pork or do you want to do the questions from Mark or the question from Mark first?
Doesn't worry me. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do Mark, and then you can do the pulled pork, and then we'll get out and do after hours. So Mark says, "Hey Cam, how's things? Good, thanks, Mark. Can you refer to me to any wisdom on the website where TK has talked about borrowing to buy shares? I'm interested in what is a suitable percentage of the portfolio to borrow against, when to borrow, i.e., maybe best after a correction, best sources of funds. Has TK done it, and what did he do?" That's the question for the ages. Has TK done it, and what did he do? We all, I've got a T-shirt that says, "Yeah, TK did it." Um, I pointed Mark to season 3, episode 62, where you did talk about using a mortgage to turbocharge your investing
Yeah.
portfolio. But it's always good to touch on it again. So, do you want
Yeah,
to
sure.
give
Yep.
Mark your 10 cents on that?
Yeah. So to address his question specifically to start off with, in terms of when to do it, I mean, the best time to invest is today. So go ahead and do it now. Uh, what I found in the market, and the way I did it was to invest in shares which had high enough dividend yields to meet my interest repayments. And generally, what happens in the share market is if interest rates go up, the dividend yields follow as well. So it doesn't really matter from that perspective when you invest. But if you say I'm going to wait for a crash, the share market could go up 100% and come back 30 or 40. So it's cost you money waiting. So as soon as you're ready to go, I'd be confident in going. You don't have to draw down everything at once or use it all at once. You can, take your time getting into the market if you're worried about it being overvalued, which it probably is a little bit at the moment. So there's that perspective. How much would I borrow? Well, I tried to keep leverage to about a third, so probably no more than 50%. So I don't want to be overly leveraged. A bit like when you're investigating a company. I wouldn't like to invest in a business which is too overly leveraged because as soon as it has a downturn or a profit downgrade, it'll start to struggle to pay its obligations. So I like to keep it within about somewhere between 30 and 50%. 50% would be the high side, debt to equity. In other words, if you currently have, say, a portfolio of $100,000 of shares and you go and borrow 33,000, then your debt to equities 100, your equity less your debt, your total assets is 133 and your equity's 100 and your debt's 33. So it's about 33% debt to equity, which is what I aim for. So it's really, I guess, a way of improving the returns without taking on overly an extra risk. How I did it, I did it for a long time until probably the last 5 years when I came back from Canada. I did it using an overdraft facility, so an interest-only loan from the bank, secured against our property. And that was good because I wasn't on the hook every month for a repayment. I could pay off the loan in large chunks at different times whenever it suited me, like if I sold a share, for example. And back when I was working, I could pay it off if I got a bonus, an annual bonus, for example. So a lump sum payment, I could pay down the debt if I wanted to or if I needed to. Whereas now I have an offset account against the principal and interest loan, which is probably the second best option. The banks have been told to tighten up how much they lend out as interest-only loans by the regulators because the banking regulators see it as being a bit risky if the banks have lots of interest-only loans out there because they're seen as being riskier than a monthly repayment loan, a principal and interest loan. I don't share that view, but that's how the regulator sees it. I guess they've got data to back that up. But they're still available. the risk reward for it is you get lots of benefits from using it, but you pay 1% more generally in interest payments. So it'll cost you more, but you have the flexibility of being able to not repay this month, not repay next month, and then repay as it suits you when you've sold something or when you've got some kind of windfall income into the household. The other option, which I have only done briefly and wouldn't recommend necessarily, is taking out a margin loan, which is to use the share portfolio to gear your borrowings. Those interest rates are much higher. So I did look up the current margin loan from the CommBank, which is around 8.64%, which is quite high compared to their interest-only loan, which was 1% higher than the current bank loan. So I think it's around 6, 5.5, something like that. 6.5 maybe. So yeah, it's at least 200 basis points higher, 2 percentage points or 2% higher, which makes it a bit more difficult to find high yielding stocks. It narrows the universe on what to invest in to cover the interest payments. And it carries the extra risk of a margin call. So the bank can, just like at this time of year, we're seeing now stocks dropping by 15% on bad results. If that drop causes the share price to fall, or the amount you own as equity in the share to fall below what's called the LVR, which is the loan valuation ratio, then you're forced to either put more money in or sell the stock to pay the bank back. So you can see what those LVRs are. Again, I'll use CommBank. If you go to the website or Google what's the LVR list for stocks on the ASX for, say, CommBank, you'll get a list. Generally, the LVR ratios are between, or CommBanks were between 40 and 80%. So obviously, CommBank was prepared to lend you up to 80% of the value of a Commonwealth Bank share, and was also loaning up to 80% of the valuation of shares like AFI, or very large ETFs, index fund type ETFs. So they saw those as being less volatile and less risky. But even so, it wouldn't be that difficult for the CommBank price to drop 20%, given it's in a very high PE ratio at the moment. It has pulled back after its results. So you could still face a margin call using those numbers. Stocks like a Credit Corp, which has been on our buy list before, they're down at 40% LVR. So that kind of fits in my framework of saying borrow, between 30 and 50 of the valuation of the portfolio to de-risk it. And that's sort of borne out with the kind of small cap end of the market in terms of what the bank will lend to. So I think that's probably all the points I'd raise. I only took out a margin loan once when I was juggling I had a large holding of Coles Myer shares when the takeover was going on, and I was leaving Coles Myer, and so I funded them using a margin loan, but I sold them reasonably quickly after the buyout went through when Wesfarmers took over Coles Myer. Otherwise, I personally wouldn't use margin lending to buy shares, and personally have used an interest-only loan, which I think is the best option. But currently, I have a principal and interest loan with a mortgage offset account, so I can reduce the amount of interest I pay each month, but I still have to pay the principal. So that's something to take into account, is that, over a period of 25 years, you've still got to pay the loan back in monthly installments. So you do have to have some cash flow coming in. And if you're funding your investments via the dividends, you've got to have a lot of extra margin there to pay 6 months worth of principal as well as the interest from the dividends. So it's a bit trickier. Or you fund it from some other method like your pay or your salary, and then as the dividends come back, you reimburse yourself. So it can still be done. But personally, I recommend investigating an interest-only loan. I'm not giving personal advice here. I don't know the circumstances for the questioner, but that's what I did.
All right. I hope that helps, Mark. Tony's thoughts on it. Um, Before we go to the pulled pork, I just wanted to do a quick portfolio update too, because I haven't done one for a while.
Mm.
The dummy portfolio for this financial year is up around about 16%, 15.76% to be specific, versus the STW up about 12%. So they're both doing well, good years.
Yeah,
We're a little bit better. Um, Stockopedia US portfolio for people that are interested in that. Looking at the all-time result, which is September 23, it's up about 83% versus the S&P 500 up about 37%. So still doing well. If I look at the 1 year chart on that, we're up about 73% versus 22% for the S&P 500. So by all metrics, except the last 3 months, we're down 3% versus the S&P up 4, but we had a very dramatic climb before that. We're up over 100%, if you recall, back
yeah,
around November. So it's come back a little bit. But yes, that's doing well. And I'm not tracking the SOP Australian one anymore, but all the portfolios are doing well. I think my super portfolio is up about 10% for the financial year so far. A little bit behind the benchmark, but doing okay.
very good.
All
Good
right.
to know.
You want to get
As
into
Paul
your.
Keating used to say, a pleasing set of numbers.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Do you want to get into your Fonterra pull pork?
I do. And this is going to sound strange to people. I researched on Terra, which is a small ADT stock, so it's not going to suit everyone. But in the kind of digging down into the weeds and the minutiae, I came across an announcement saying that they're about to delist from the ASX. So
Oh,
I will go through and do the pulled pork. Reason number one is I haven't had time to find another company to do it on because I didn't come across that announcement straight away. Reason number two is it's been on the buy list for a while, so there possibly are people who are shareholders. And within a couple of days, I think it's the 25th of February, it's about a week, 26th of February, they have to, no, 25th of February, they have to decide whether they're going to move across to the NZX because the Fonterra shareholders fund will still continue, but it's currently dual listed. And most of the shareholders are in New Zealand. And so the fund wants to stop paying ASX fees and migrate across to New Zealand. So if you
mm.
are a shareholder and you're not aware of that, you've got to decide what to do. If it were me, again, not personal advice, I keep it simple and sell the shares and invest in something else. But it has a good track record. It's been doing well of late. And some people might have capital gains tax issues if they sold or might want to hold on. Then if you do nothing, within a week to 10 days, you're going to be listed on the NZX. And that'll have some other issues for you, not the least of which will be currency risk that you'll have to think about for your investments. But anyway, I will go through it. Interesting company. So it's a small ADT stock, $54,000 traded on the ASX, a lot more than that traded on the New Zealand Stock Exchange. So there are some benefits to going back to New Zealand. 54,000 K will only suit small portfolios for QAV listeners here, sort of around the 150 to $200,000 mark, I would have thought. But when it goes to the New Zealand Stock Exchange, I didn't pull out what their ADT is, but given the ratio of ASX shareholders to NZ shareholders, I think it'll be a lot larger than that. So people might want to take advantage of that. So it's an interesting situation. Fonterra is the dairy co-op in New Zealand. It's it's one of the largest ones in the world, and it's the largest, I'll call it largest listed business in New Zealand, if not the largest business, full stop. Although the listing in New Zealand's a bit strange, and it's when I say it's strange, it's basically listed to enable the farmers who, if they want to sell milk to the co-op, they have to buy shares in the co-op, and it facilitates that sort of transaction process by listing on the NZ Stock Exchange. I'm not sure what the mechanism is, but as an outside investor, I don't think you can buy shares in the Fonterra company itself, in the co-op itself. So it's basically allowing farmer to farmer transactions and allowing new farmers who want to sell their milk to Fonterra to be able to get the shares to do that. Over the course of its history, Fonterra realised that other people might like to invest in the business because it's more than just buying the milk from farmers and pooling it and selling it for the best price. It's now a whole range of brands, including ones in Australia. And so they set up the Fonterra Shareholders Fund, which is it's actually a trust. It's the company I'm talking about today, although it's really a trust. And it allows people who aren't farmers to buy a unit in the trust and have the trust own a share in Fonterra, the parent co-op company. And so basically it entitles you to dividends from the company and I guess any other sort of capital returns that the company does from time to time. So the numbers are a bit screwy if you look at them from a QAV point of view, because the company has a Fonterra Shareholders Fund doesn't make any money. Fonterra, the company or co-op, does. The shareholder fund doesn't have a PE, it doesn't have an EPS. It does have operating cash flow, which equates to the dividends it receives from Fonterra. So that's why it's popping up on our radar, because it's got a prop CAF. A little bit of background. Fonterra, it's it's responsible for 30% approximately of the world's dairy exports, and with revenues exceeding New Zealand 22 billion, it's New Zealand's largest company according to Wikipedia. So it's quite large. And I know from my time in New Zealand, the way it used to work, and this is going back sort of 12, 15 years now, Fonterra would come out, I think, I'm going to say quarterly, but it could have been 6 monthly or periodically, and they would announce the price that they were paying for milk. And that was a hotly anticipated number, and it could tip the New Zealand economy one way or the other. If the number was higher than what it was expected or lower than what was expected, it could have repercussions all the way through the New Zealand economy, because dairy farming is such a big part of the New Zealand economy. Let's see. Another thing to highlight, and this came from the New Zealand Shareholders Association, is that the Fonterra Shareholders Fund is a fund that only owns shares in Fonterra Cooperative Group, but there are 107.4 million units of FCF, but a total of 1.609 million FCG shares. So 107 million outsider shares and 1.6 billion shares, farmer shares in Fonterra. So there is a conflict of interest, and the New Zealand Shareholders Association raises this. Suppliers, i.e. the farmers, would rather receive a higher price for their milk, but a higher price means a higher cost of sales to Fonterra and subsequently a lower profit, and thus earnings for shareholders and the shareholders fund goes down. So there's a conflict of interest here, and it's always been a dicey one that co-ops have to manage, is how much do they give back to the members versus how much do they keep as profit to fund their own expansion. What else can I say about Fonterra? Yeah, that's probably it. I've covered most of the rest of the quotes I've got there about how it works. Getting on to the delisting. So this was announced on the 15th of January 2025. Fonterra shareholders fund has obtained approval from the official list of the ASX to have it removed. And the timing for the removal is Wednesday, the 26th of February. Sorry, Tuesday, the 25th of February. FSF units will suspend from trading on the ASX at the close of trading. Wednesday, the 26th to Thursday, the 27th, the quotation of FSF units is suspended on the ASX. There's no ASX trading. All ASX trades are settled with their 2-day settlement, and the units are then transferred to the NZX. And on Thursday, the 27th of February, FSF is removed from the official list of the ASX at the close of trading. Excuse me. So, where are we now? It does talk about in the release that they're going to transfer any remaining ASX unit holders across to the trust listed in New Zealand. One thing I didn't mention was that, this is another thing which I picked up from my research, which was interesting, and again, not highly promoted on the website, was that what is promoted well on the websites is the portfolio of Fonterra brands includes Western Star, Perfect Italiano cheese, Bega cheese, and mainland cheese. And they also have some food service businesses supplying to commercial food processors, one called Anchor Foods and an ingredients business called NZMP. However, on the 11th of November 2024, Fonterra announced that they were going to sell most of their consumer businesses and that they were going to focus on the milk business. So they've long trumpeted their ownership in these food brands, and now they're putting them up for sale. So not only is Fonterra retreating, or the FSF retreating back to the NZ market, but Fonterra, the co-op itself, is also retreating back to its core business of buying milk and selling it as a pooled entity. And I think they're also keeping their commercial businesses, Anchor Foods and NZMP. So a lot of moving parts going on, a lot of announcements going on, which aren't, in my opinion, weren't very highly flagged. You had to go right down into the detail of the ASX announcements to find out about it. What I next looked at was the earnings. So FY24 earnings were solid compared to longer term trends, but down on last year. So last year was a bumpy year. Part of that was due to the sale of some of their businesses in Brazil and China. Like-for-like sales were down 7% and the EBIT was down 11%. NPAT's pretty hard to compare because it was inflated last year by the asset sales. However, even though FY23 is slightly down FY24, 24 is down FY23, FY23 was way above the medium-term trend. So FY22 was a lot lower than FY23. So even though I think I've read one of the analyst reports and they pointed out that even though numbers were down this year, it's still head and shoulders above what it has been in the past. So they weren't overly concerned with that. In terms of the QAV numbers, the share price I used was $4.50. I think it's a little bit higher than that today. So even though it's going to be delisted on the ASX, I guess it's being supported by the co-op pricing in New Zealand. There's no consensus target, so I can't see how $4.50 compares. Was a little bit higher than TK1, IV1, sorry. The yield is very good, and this is a shareholder fund which is getting dividends from the co-op, so dividends are important. Yield is high at 9.5%, so it scores for us on that metric. Stock Doctor can't give it a financial health score or trend, so we can't score it on that metric, and I believe it's because we're not seeing any profit in the company in terms of earnings per share. Stockopedia is in a similar boat, so its quality ranking is 38, which is very low, and the overall ranking is 80, which is also reasonably low. So Stockopedia give it a very low ranking, a very low F score, again because of this lack of profit. However, the Stockopedia ranking for the Fonterra Co-op itself, which is NZX code FCG, is 96, which is quite high, with a quality rank of 84. So the underlying business throwing off the dividends, which fund the income into SFS, is scoring well in Stockopedia. So I'm reasonably satisfied with the quality of the shareholder fund. PropCap is strong at 4.76 times. Can't give you a lens on the PE because we don't have one. NTA, this is trading at less than book plus 30 at $4.65. And the NTA is 355, which is also less than book plus 30. So it's we're buying it for less than net assets. The shareholder fund hasn't consistently increasing its earnings, so we can't score it for that. We talked before about whether it has a recently upturned 3-point trendline sentiment, and I thought it hadn't, but as Cam pointed out, the results for this company come out in July, so it just sneaks in as a recent 3-point upturn since its last results. It doesn't have an owner-founder because it's basically a trust fund set up to allow other investors into the Fonterra co-op. So we can't score it for that. Overall, the quality score is 63.6% and the QAV score is 0.13. So not at the high end of the buy list. It's been on there for a long time, so I thought I'd still cover it. But the highlight for me is people are going to have to decide in the next week whether they sell or whether they remain and get transferred to the New Zealand Stock Exchange.
I just looked on the my spreadsheet and I have it flagged as delisting, so it must have come up at some point
Okay, good.
in the past. Somebody must have flagged it. But yeah, we don't hold onto it. But good heads up if anyone out there listening holds on to Fonterra and you haven't done something about it yet, you might want to get onto that. So you said they have 30% of the world's dairy export
Yeah,
market? That's
I
insane
was
for a
really
company out
surprised
of
at
New
that.
Zealand.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was from Wikipedia. And I saw somewhere else that they were the biggest dairy co-op in the Southern Hemisphere, and I think either top 5 or top 6 in the world. So yeah, they're quite large.
Wow.
Mm.
Thank you, Tony. Well, that's it. After hours. What have you got for me this week?
Not sure if it was you who recommended. I think it was to watch Babylon, um,
The film?
the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I did.
What'd
I
you,
thought it was great.
I loved
It's
it.
a,
It's crazy,
it's a,
isn't it? It's wild.
it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a masterpiece, I think, like a Fellini sort of masterpiece.
Fellini, that's exactly what I said when I watched it. It's his
Oh,
attempt at
okay.
doing a
Yeah,
Fellini film. Yeah, it's just that kind of bizarre sort of whatever, Fellini-esque thing. Yeah. Very, very Fellini-esque. Yeah.
yeah, crazy. I thought it was great. I mean, I'm going to call out to the kids listening in the car. Don't watch it. It's full of sex and drugs, but I loved it. I thought it was great.
And Margot Robbie's performance I thought was
Oh,
fantastic.
sensational!
Yeah.
That was the real highlight for me. Yeah,
Really great performance from her. Like it's a great character. I mean, she's done a lot of great performances, a lot of great characters, but that was right up there.
yeah,
Brad
I
Pitt was
agree.
good. It was sort of an easy role for him playing a aging, fading movie star kind of thing, but I thought he
Yeah,
did a great job showing the insecurities of that guy.
yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
I really enjoyed it.
and the one scene I really remember is the scene between him and Gene Smart at the end.
Hmm. The
Plays the
cockroach.
like the PR hack, yeah, the cockroach.
Yeah,
And she basically says, "Look, you had your moment, you made some stuff. Everyone's time passes. Hollywood will survive you." And I think I said to you at the time, my takeaway on the underlying message that Damien, whatever his name was, trying to get across in the film, it's all about how Hollywood's changing because of TikTok and AI and all this kind of
right.
stuff that's coming. It's like, don't fight it. Things change.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
the
you
streaming services.
Yes, all of that.
Mm.
Yeah. Things don't stay the same as they were, when you became a big movie star. Like things change and there'll be a new generation of filmmakers and entertainers and whatever that'll figure out the new business models and they're going to be different from the old business models, but that's just progress, right? In the entertainment industry. Yeah.
And it was and that's the the movie is about the transition from silent movies to talkies and how Brad Pitt's acting style didn't suit the talkies. And the first movie he made, he walked into the in the RBA costume into the back of the movie theater so he could blend in, and everyone was laughing at his emotional scenes. So that's the movie in a nutshell. But it had parallels with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too, another Brad Pitt film where Leo DiCaprio's his character struggled to move from Western movies to TV Westerns, and how the rise of TV was hurting the movie industry. So that was interesting, an interesting parallel, I thought too.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, it's two movies by two great directors.
Mm,
He won an Academy Award for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Babylon got trashed by the
it
critics.
did, yeah,
And
undeservedly so, I think.
that was my take on it too. Like I checked it out, even though I'd heard bad things about it, because the director, it's the same guy who did La La Land and
Yeah, right.
the drumming one,
Whiplash,
Whiplash.
yeah,
Both
yeah.
great films, really great, interesting films. And I thought, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. I'll at least check it out. And I just thought it was terrific. And I assumed that because it was sort of criticizing Hollywood and people bitching and moaning about how
Um,
things are changing, that Hollywood turned on him and the critics, even though like Gene Smart, the critic is the one that comes out as sort of the smartest one at the end of it. Um, they turned on him for some reason, but I don't know.
and it reminded
Yeah,
me, I mean, I remember reading a book called Hollywood Babylon many years ago, and a lot of the stories from that were in the movie as well. So he done a pastiche of the supposedly Fatty Arbuckle story where the fat comedian um, kills a girl he's with, and how they have to hush it up, and various other sort of things I recall from that book were in there in different scenes and different parts, even just the sides.
right.
Thought that was interesting. Yeah, I love seeing Flea, the bassist from Red
Yeah,
Hot Chili Peppers, play a character. He was good,
yeah.
really good. Yeah.
Flea turns up in all sorts of things. Like he was in Back to the Future too, as
Oh,
a
really?
yeah, as one of uh pay attention, McFly. Who Biff? He's one of Biff's
Ah, yeah.
sort of henchmen, hangers on
Right.
in Back to the Future too. Like he's been around doing acting bits since the
Mm,
80s. And he's still turning up and stuff, which is great.
mm,
Yeah, so that's good. I took Chrissy out to see the Australian Chamber Orchestra last night. It was my birthday present
mm.
to her. Tickets to see them do the Brahms Violin Concerto and Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, which we enjoyed. But can't beat Shostakovich. I couldn't find them doing a
I've tried.
Shostakovich performance, but yeah,
I
you
tried
tried.
listening. I didn't get into it. No.
Didn't? Oh my
No.
God. All right. So yesterday I went on my 2.5 hour bike ride at 6 a.m. I listened to a podcast about Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony, part two of a podcast done by a conductor out of Boston. Then over the course of the day, I listened to four different recordings of it, I think, over the course of the day while I was working. Um, I'm sort of still deeply obsessed with the Fifth Symphony.
I do like the ACO. Many years ago, Jenny and I went along to a fundraiser for them at Fran Lana, one of the Meyer family houses in Melbourne. And it was when Richard Tognetti, their lead violinist, had been gifted a very old violin by
The Guarneri
Russell Crowe.
family. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. He was playing,
Mm.
he was, so last night he was playing the lead violin in the violin concerto and conducting. He's been the artistic director of the ACO now for 35 years.
Yeah, wow.
He was 24 when he took the position. 35 years now, 59, married to the principal violinist when he's not the principal violinist. Um, yeah, and he did a great job. Chrissy was, it's not the first time we've seen the ACO, but it's been a while. And she was like very, very impressed with their performance. So it was good.
Yeah, good.
I'm still reading Yes Prime Minister, Yes Minister scripts and reading the third Le Carre book, and I'm enjoying the Carre book. The more it gets into it, the more I'm just really. It's very similar to Yes Minister in a way about the inner
Uh-huh.
machinations of these guys and the bureaucracy and just the way he depicts all of these guys as kind of schleppy losers, in a
Yeah.
way, trying to be
Yeah.
more than they.
Bureaucrats. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all trying to be important, but they're just kind of, yeah, middle of the ladder bureaucrats who have been left
Yeah.
behind, and it's such a different take on spies to what I'm used
Yeah.
to,
Different
right?
to Bond, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a 180 to Bond, it really
And Len
is.
Deighton's even more down that path as well, because his main character is kind of a working class lad who's not just battling all of that, but also battling the class structure as well. And but he's full of double crosses in the bureaucracy and people out to get him because he's not doesn't have didn't go to the right school and all that kind of stuff. But they're really good too.
You've recommended one of his to me before, and I can't remember
Yeah, a
if I
couple.
read
The
it
Ipcris
or
Files are the most famous, which is really good.
Chris. Yeah, that's right.
The
I'm
movie
pretty
wasn't so
sure I
great,
read
even
that.
though I'm a big fan of Michael Caine, but the book's terrific.
Harry Palmer.
Harry Palmer, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Not
Harry
sure if I
Palmer.
read that or not. Um, I also did my first 24-hour fast in 30 years or 20 years yesterday.
Gosh, you're so
Um,
healthy.
I've been doing intermittent fasting for the last week or so, probably. I've been doing 19.5 most days, 18.6 some kung fu days because my eating window is at 4 p.m. today, 4 to 9. So I fast from 9 p.m. through to 4 p.m. and then I'll eat for 5 hours. But on kung fu days, some afternoons we go at 3:30, so I eat at 3 instead, so I don't have to eat at kung fu. But I did a 24-hour fast yesterday, so 9 p.m. to 9 p.m. So we got out of the symphony, and I had a muesli bar at the train station waiting for the train. And I'm building up to a 48-hour fast, probably the next week or two I'll do. But
Oh, wow.
I haven't fasted like this since my early 30s. My dad died when I was 30, 31, and I was like 130 kilos or something at the time. And I decided
Really?
to,
Wow.
yeah, so my early days at Microsoft when I was going out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the corporate card and just not exercising, and
Yeah,
the
right.
Scottish DNA kicked in really
Uh-huh.
quickly. And I lost like 30 kilos. But I did a 30-day fast. I did a lot of like 7-day fast, and then I did a 30-day fast back then.
Wow.
And it's easy. Once you get over the thing with, I don't know, have you ever done any long fasts back when
Not
you were
that long. I've,
doing?
I've done 24. I don't religiously follow any of these things, but I generally don't eat until lunchtime.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that, but I don't know if it's
Yeah.
good or bad, just how I am.
No, that's good. I mean, I think you get they say that most of the benefits of like the autophagy and stuff like that kick in sort of in the 18 to 24 hour
Hmm.
mark, and then after that, that's where you get most of the benefits from it. But anything after like 12 hours is good. Anyway, remember when I did the 30, the first 3 or 4 days of a long water fast are the hardest, and then you sort of kick into the full sort of ketosis thing, and you don't get hungry really after that. Your body's feeding off the grill, and
Yeah.
um, it causes the hunger pains goes away, and you feel great. I remember feeling great. But I was living in Melbourne at the time, doing regular run around the tan with my friend Michael every couple of days. And I remember this one day early in the morning before work, I did this run around the tan, and I got about halfway around it. The tan's like about 5K, I think. Got about
Yeah.
halfway around it, and all of the muscles in my back seized up because I wasn't taking any electrolytes.
Yep.
And I crawled the last time, literally on
Oh,
my hands and knees. I had to crawl back to my car, cl- climbed
oh.
into my car, and that was it. I cut the fast. I don't think I ever fasted again after that. These days, I know I'm smarter, and I know, I need to put some. Like when I go to kung fu and I'm fasting, I put some salt in my water and that kind of stuff. So I've got some electrolytes. But yeah,
Did you find when you finished the long fast like that, you actually like you obviously lose weight, but did you put it back on quickly because your body goes, "Oh, thank God the famine's over. I'm going to store up for the next one."
no. And what I used to do back then is, I would eat normally for a while. And then if I found that when you start eating again after you do a fast, you really appreciate everything, like natural
Yeah, right.
foods, right?
Yeah.
Vegetables, raw, and I'd eat a lot of raw salads and that kind of stuff. But then over time, as I found my diet was slipping and I was starting to get lazy and I was starting to eat processed foods, I'd do another fast just for a couple of days, just to sort of reboot my appreciation for natural foods again and get back into it. And I sort of kept my weight down at sort of 100 then for years. It was only like the last, just before Kung Fu years where I started to get up around sort of 104, 105 again, and was like, okay, that's not good. I better do something. And, now I'm down to like 91.
Yeah, right. Well, good for
But
you.
yeah, but the fasting's fun. It's kind of gets addictive though. I was talking to Chrissy about it this morning. She was in her 20s up until when I met her. She had body issues. Sorry, I've been drinking yerba mate. I've got some tea stuck in my throat. And she was like bulimic, a little bit bulimic, had all sorts of body, image issues. Because I think her dad told her she was fat when she was a kid.
Oh, gosh.
And so we were just talking about it and how addictive it is. Like when my fasting window was up last night at 24 hours, I was talking to her going, kind of part of me wants to push it through to tomorrow morning, just make it 36. Like I've done it this far, I might as well just keep going. And she's like, yeah, it's a slippery slope, when you start to get to that point. She said, you had a plan, stick to the plan, because it becomes addictive, right? You start going, all right, well, I've gone this far, I might as well just go another 24 hours. Like, what's the big deal? I just might as well push it out. Like I'm dealing with it fine. I'm used to the hunger. Anyway.
Mm.
If you have a certain kind of addictive personality, as I do, it's very easy with this kind of stuff to get a little bit sort of obsessive compulsive with it, I think.
Yeah, right.
Oh, and my guru
Luckily, I
died
haven't.
last week. I didn't mention
Yeah,
that.
I heard that. I saw your post on that.
Sailor Bob saved my life 35 odd years ago. Um, and he finally passed away in his late 90s, I think. So there you go. So that was
Well,
it's good.
you've spoken to me before about Sailor Bob, and I went to his website and bought his book and stuff, but it's all a bit Shostakovich to me. I started going down the Eastern religion pathway, and I thought, no, that's not me.
Well, you
So
read the Three Illusions too, right? And some of that made
yeah, which
sense to you
is
eventually.
oh no, absolutely. I completely get all that kind of stuff, and I completely get Einstein when he talks about, the time and its relationship to how we see it and all that. So I completely get the science of it and no
Hmm.
free will and all that kind of stuff. And you probably helped me to understand that. But yeah, when it started talking about the Eastern religion side of things in Sailor Bob's books, it I lost it. I lost the
Well,
thread.
my the Three Illusions, I guess, was my attempt to take the Eastern religion stuff and put it in a scientific
Right.
terms, right? Because
Yeah.
I didn't relate easily to the Indian version of it either. Whilst it helped me, and it took me down that direction by doing inquiries into the nature of self and the nature of free will and the nature of time.
Right.
The terminology that you inherit from uneducated mystics from India didn't work for me very well for many, many years. People would say, well, everything's made of energy. And I go, well, hold on. Energy is a measurement to measure the amount of work that can be done in a system. So you're saying everything's made of a measurement of work? What does that mean, really? So
Yeah.
they tend to use, well, everything is consciousness. I go, well, consciousness is a property of the brain in my mind. So what are we talking about here? So there's the
Yeah.
terminology as they're used to using it doesn't fit well in my brain. I had to pass it into
Right.
language that I could work with, which took me years. Anyway,
Well, I'm glad you did because that's much more accessible for me anyway, reading the Three Illusions than uh, reading Sailor Bob's book.
yeah, well, I'm glad. But Sailor Bob, well, an amazing life. Like for people who don't know, I met this guy when I was 19. I was very messed up psychologically, emotionally. I'd been sober for about a year or two, but still just really in a bad place. Met Bob, and he basically gave me one thing to think about. He said, you know, ask yourself the question, what am I? Just go and sit with that. Come back to me when you have something. And about a year later, I didn't need to go back to him. I mean, I would go to his thing every week and he'd go, how you going with that? I'm like, I'm still thinking about it. He goes, all right, just keep thinking about it. And then after about a year, I kind of had a breakthrough and realizing that I couldn't find anything that I could say was me. So I decided that I didn't exist. Um, but
And yet you do. I can see you.
well, what you can see and what exists are two different things. You can't see me actually. Photons are being are bouncing off the atoms in my body, and then those photons are hitting a camera, and the camera's translating that into a signal, and that signal
Hmm.
is being transmitted to your laptop screen, which is sending light as photons, which hits your eye and is converted into an electrical signal. And the electrical signal is going through to your optic center of your brain, which is creating an image for you, but you're not actually seeing me. You're seeing something in your brain that's a representation, maybe, of what is happening here, but I don't know. I could be
Really? If Sailor Bob asked me the question, I'd say, I'm a bag of bones, and so are you. That's, that's my answer to that question. What's me?
okay,
Meat bag. It
okay,
is.
right. But which bits of the meat bag are you?
Oh, okay. You're going to play that game. Um, the,
Well, the
this
meat
this bit, the total.
the meat, the atoms that made up your body 10 years ago are not the atoms that make up your body today. So are
Hmm.
you the atoms from 10 years ago, which are now something else, or are you the atoms from today? And when did you
I,
become
I,
the atoms that are
I'm
today?
both. I'm the meat bag, made
So
of
the
atoms
atoms
which
that
may not be the same as they were 10 years ago.
so the atoms that were your meat bag 10 years ago aren't you anymore. There's something else now.
Yeah, they've gone off to do something else in the universe.
Okay, so you are a temporary configuration of atoms
Yep, in the
which are
form of a
being
meat bag.
replaced constantly. Every second of the day,
Hmm.
new atoms are coming in, old atoms are going out.
Hmm.
Just a temporary. Any particular atoms? What if you lost an arm? Would you still be you?
Yeah, of course I would. I'd be
Okay,
armless, mate.
so if you lost two arms and two legs, would you still be you?
Just a flesh wound. Yeah.
So you're not those. You're not all the atoms in the meat bag. You're just some of the atoms in the meat bag.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which atoms in
Well,
the meat bag are you?
right now I'm all the atoms in the meat bag though. I haven't lost an arm.
And how do you know where you stops and the chair starts?
Because I can get up and walk away from the chair.
Right, but when you are sitting on the chair, there's no hard delineation between the atoms of your body and the atoms of the chair or the atoms of the air around you, because atoms don't have a hard shell. We
Hmm.
know that they're mostly empty and they have a cloud, a probability cloud of electrons
Hmm.
orbiting the nucleus. So
So they have a nucleus.
they have a nucleus, yeah, which doesn't
The
really
nucleus in my butt is different to the nucleus in the chair,
doesn't really
even though the
exist
energy
until
fields
it's
might
observed.
intermingle.
Observed.
True. Yep.
Yeah. So according to wave particle duality, those things spend most of their times as just a probability field,
Yeah,
which
correct.
is where it comes down to me. Like identity, the nature of identity, when you scratch the surface, becomes mungible. It's very hard to uh, put a hard circle around this is what I am at any given point in time. Anyway, back to Bob. He spent the last 50 years of his life just sitting down in rooms and talking to people about this stuff, never charged a dime for it, just gave it away as it was given to him by a guy in India, Nisargadatta, when he was there in the early 70s. Um, yeah, just spent
I
his.
did buy his book though.
He wrote some books. Yeah, I don't think he made a lot of
Yeah.
money out of selling books.
No, I can imagine. So,
He ran a health food store when I first met him. He actually,
okay.
he and his wife at the time owned a health food store and in Hawthorne, Glenferrie Road, Hawthorne, which they sold and did okay, I think, out of that for their retirement. And they had a nice property up in the Dandenongs, which they sold too at some point. But so he lived on that. But yeah, anyway, it was a big.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss.
Don't
It was a
be.
big
It
part of
was
your
no
life, I know.
loss. He's still in my mind. He's still part of my memories. And
Hmm.
I was just filled with, like, Chrissy was like, "Are you sad?" I'm like, "No, I'm just filled with love and gratitude for
Mm.
what
Good.
he gave
Nice.
me and what he gave many, many, many people over the course of his life. Just love and gratitude, is a life well lived in my book,
Mm. Very good.
just like Elon Musk. Uh,
Not much
Baffleck,
gratitude there.
how's Baffleck going, Tony?
Pretty good. He's going to race on Friday, or the atoms, will constitute Batfleck, will race on Friday. And so will Chacha Changes, I think, will race on Thursday. I just picked up a notice about that one too. Batfleck, the trainer sends me about three or four different options for when it'll run. So I don't normally find out until the day before, but yeah, it'll be end of the week for Batfleck. And Chacha Changes, I'm a bit more certain on. We'll probably run at Pakenham in the evening at about 8:15 on Thursday.
Did you see the other Baffleck's Super Bowl Dunkin' Donuts commercial?
I didn't know. Good.
It's mildly funny. He
Okay.
did one last year when he was married to J Lo, and now he did one. Now he's not married to J Lo with his brother, and Jeremy Strong is in it. He's the good
Okay.
bit. It's a very long video, but they're basically doing an ad for Dunkin' Donuts, and Jeremy Strong's trying to get in character as uh, some guy from American Revolution. Can't remember his name, but it makes fun of Baffleck. Affleck's making fun of himself and all of his issues, and they're making fun of Jeremy Strong's reputation for being a serious method actor who has to, get into character and stay in character, and they take the piss out of him, and he takes the piss out of himself in it, so it's funny for that. But
Yeah,
I was
good.
watching and
I'll
going,
look it
oh,
up.
well, Tony's got a horse called Baffleck. That's all I
Yeah.
could think of.
Out of a mare called J-Lo. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
All
Well, I
right.
guess
That's
that's
all I
it.
got.
Thank
Yep.
you, TK. Enjoy Wagga. Safe trip back.
Thank you. Yep.
Talk to you next
Thanks,
week.
mate.
Have a
I'm
good
going
week,
for a walk
everyone.
now with Roddy.
Lovely.
Tell Taylor he'll think we'll be holding hands and skipping into the sunset, but we're just going for a bit of exercise.
No judgment.
No, good. We're not gonna we're not gonna merge our atoms formally.
Okay. We'll see.
Okay. All right. Have a good week.